Good morning to everybody that is here in me. We are now very far from here in Spain to there in Anaheim Convention Center. I would have liked to be with you. Unfortunately, diocesan tasks have impeded me to be with you. But Mr. Dominic Bernardino has been very kind, allowing to speak to you a little through this way. I spoke in other video about the importance of this meeting of the SCRC, and believe me, if there were no very important reasons, I would have been with you. We are going to speak for a while about the spiritual warfare. It's something that I have studied in a long way in my doctoral thesis that I hope to be published next year. And what you are going to hear here is a little summary about this topic. First of all, how spiritual warfare arrived to the literature, the charismatic literature in the past century and this century. The first one that spoke about this, it was in 1989, and it was Peter Wagner, professor of the Theological Seminary of Fulda, and he is considered the beginner of this movement that was born in the evangelical world. Other authors from 1989, like Jack Hayford, John Guichot, Omar Cabrera, Edgardo Silvoso, or Tom White, began to treat this topic in their lectures. From that moment, more and more Pentecostal groups began to speak about how to pray to God to tie the territorial spirits, as they will call them. The specificity of the spiritual warfare is based essentially in the notion of territorial spirits. As one of the authors say, territorial spirits, or the demons that rule over whole cities, regions, maintaining ties to incredulity or sin. This notion of territorial spirits later passed to the Catholic charismatic groups in the United States, and later to the whole world. This topic of spiritual warfare against territorial spirits has spread more and more, and now there are a great number of lay people giving talks about a field that some priests do not feel they are very sure what is the theological base. That is why what we are going to try to go deep, the theological base about those territorial spirits. My topic especially is exorcism, and we have to say that spiritual warfare later went to the exorcisms, because in the middle of exorcisms, charismatic individuals began to introduce practices that come from spiritual warfare. For example, in the first exorcism I was in my whole life, in a moment of the exorcism, the lady that was doing that over another lady, she said to her group, "Let us walk around and let us pray to the Lord. She said, we are going to do Jericho 7 times, praying and seeing for this person to be free from that spirit. As you see, from spiritual warfare, many practices began to go inside exorcism over individuals. Prayer walks is just one example. But we have to consider a prayer walk has a theology inside it. Is just a walk praying, or there is a theological base to do that specific thing in an exorcism? Well, what we have to consider is that when evangelicals, Pentecostals, and Catholics when they speak about spiritual warfare, there are some valid underlying elements. And there are other elements that come from revelation. What we have to consider very seriously is the underlying theological elements that are with a biblical base, for example. When we accumulate more and more and more revelations about how to do an exorcism, and sometimes there is no base, theological base for that, just revelation. You have to do this on this way because that is the only way to free that person or to free that city from power of darkness. Really, please, we begin to wonder if we have to believe. As a general rule, it's very clear. We have to believe the faith of the Church, the Bible, the Holy Fathers of the Church, but we are not obliged to believe everybody that says that he has a revelation. Otherwise, the knowledge for exorcism in some priests is just accumulation of practices. And sometimes they go farther and farther from the simplicity of the theological base for exorcism. It doesn't matter if it is for a person or for a city. First of all, it is according to reason to consider that demons form a society, and because they are rational beings, for sure they organize themselves, and for sure they divide tasks in the world among themselves. It is for sure clear that bigger demons are at the top of the pyramid, and those that are not so intelligent, not so powerful, they are at the base. And bigger demons organize a lesser level of demons. That has a biblical base, because, for example, we find in St. Paul that he speaks in Colossians chapter 1, verse 16, or Ephesians chapter 1, verse 21, Ephesians again, chapter 6, 12, and he speaks about angels and demons, and he distinguishes between thrones or dominions, or rulers or powers. As you may see very clearly, some of those substantives they have the idea of power, archai and exousia in the original Greek. But kyriotetes and thronoi, rulers and powers, is power. Thrones and dominions, its hierarchy, is hierarchy over angels, fallen angels. Then the idea of a hierarchy is just in the way St. Paul refers to the fallen angels. Later, we find in the book of Daniel that they are distributed by sons. It's a very mysterious verse in Daniel chapter 10. In verse 5, the prophet says, I looked up and saw a man clothed in linen, with a belt of gold from Uphaz around his waist. Chapter 13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, says that man clothed in linen, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia opposed me for 21 days. So Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I left him there with the prince of the kingdom of Persia. And a final 2 verses more in Daniel chapter 10. He say, do you know why I have come to you? Now I must return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I am through with him, the prince of Greece will come. There is no one with me who contends against these princes, except Michael, your prince. It's a very, very mysterious text in the Bible, because the prophet received the visit of a man, a mysterious man, and he says that he has been fighting against princes. The prince of the kingdom of Persia opposed me for 21 days. With a mysterious man, not a soldier, not somebody that was with flesh in the battlefield. And it is more clear when he says later that St. Michael has gone there to help him. There is no one with me who contends against these princes, except Michael, your prince. This text is speaking of a fight among princes. Some princes are good, one of them is Michael. Some princes are evil. And he says that there was one prince for the kingdom of Persia. And another one, he was the prince of Greece. Then, even it's mysterious, when you reflect about these verses, you see clearly that there is a battle with humans on earth, but there is another battle with angels in an invisible world. That excuse me. That fits with the idea of a distribution of demons that we spoke before. But not just demons and more demons, there is a hierarchy. Because some demons are called princes. If we consider this denomination, demons, Prince of Persia, Prince of Greece, and other demons, we consider in a new way the title for devil as Prince of the world. And we consider that if we fight in spiritual warfare through prayer, through fasting, through sacrifice, against those invisible powers, we will expel those demons. They will not tempt to the people, and many evil things will not happen. That is the base for spiritual warfare. The idea of the distribution of demons, the idea of a hierarchy, and through prayer we can expel those demons, and then they cannot tempt to the people. But this idea is not only on that verse of Daniel, because we find Saint Catherine of Siena in an episode of her life. She was praying and she saw the whole city, plenty of demons, that make that people to be tempted against the Pope for kill him. Through prayer, through suffering, she got from God those demons to be expelled from that city, and the Pope was not killed. We find another, well, for those that want to read that episode, is in Tommaso Caffarini, Leggenda Minori da Santa Caterina de Siena, third part, chapter 2. But it's a very, very brief episode. The writer did not want to go very deep in the theology that was underlying that episode. But we find exactly the same in the life of St. Francis of Assisi, St. Buenaventura, Leggenda Maggiore, chapter 6, number 9, and the saint, St. Francis, in Arezzo, he saw like a whirl of demons over the city, and they were tempting the citizens for killing themselves. The book continues saying that he commanded a brother Sylvester, to go before the door of the city and, by the authority of God the Almighty, to command the demons, in virtue of obedience, to go away in a fast way. He did, and he said, "Go away from here, all demons." And the demons must to go out. It's exactly the same as in the episode of St. Catherine of Siena. The same base, theological base, is underlying the Leonine prayers, those prayers that were done after the Mass, kneeling in front of the altar. When the priest had finished the Holy Mass, he had to say several prayers asking for the protection of the Church against demons, but even commanding demons to go away from the Church. That is the part very well known called as Exorcism of Leo XIII, part of the Leonine prayers. The priest is not exorcising an individual that is possessed before him, but he is exorcising the demonic powers in the whole Church to make the Church to live at peace. Then, as we have seen, the exorcistic power has two sides. We as priests, we can pray for a person that is possessed to be free from the power of demons, but we can exorcise demons for the Church to to be free from that action. Many evil things will not happen because many people will not fall under that temptation. As you see now, we have to consider that exorcistic power that has those two sides. Demons are distributed, and third, there is a hierarchy of demons organized in the world. The prince of the world, princes of each kingdom, probably demons that organize demons on a city, and finally demons that goes to do their work on individuals. We can do theological warfare, but we are not obliged to believe everybody telling us what we have to do. The person that is before us perhaps is a holy person and really he receives messages from God or not. The discernment of each priest has to do that work, the work of discernment. Second, it will be something very good to explain to priests, if they wish, to pray to God for protection of the church or the parish or the diocese or the Sacred College of Cardinals. They can pray to God to make the demons to go away from that area or human group. But we can exercise the exorcistic power. As far as we do, completely alone, with nobody, in the intimacy of our rectory or in the church with the doors completely closed, completely locked. As far as we do those prayers with nobody witnessing, there is nothing wrong, and the code of law, the canonical law, says nothing about that kind of personal warfare. The code of canon law speaks only about exorcism over persons. Later, the ritual asks the permission of the bishop to do exorcisms for a house, an apartment, things like that. You have to ask permission to use that part of the ritual. That is what is said there. But for the moment, the law says nothing about this personal spiritual warfare that you can do with your own words, and for sure has an effect on the world of demons. No doubt that when one priest is exorcising the demons, not to attack the bishop or the diocese, they find a wall that they cannot surpass it. Of course, if I pray just a little, just one priest, for the demons of the whole diocese, I will not stop all the demons. But some demons, for sure, they will find an invisible wall they cannot surpass it. The more I pray, the more I strengthen that wall. How many times in exorcisms, demons, they say, I will have done this or this other thing, but there was an invisible wall I could not do. Or they say, it was not permitted to me to approach that person. We have to discover the possibilities of the sword, the spiritual sword that the Lord has given to the apostles and they have given to us. We do not need to do these rituals or specific prayers. You can do with your own words. You can command the demons to go away with the prayers that come to your heart. Even those that are in the Charismatic renewal movement, they can use the prayer in tongues. Another question very interesting is, lay people can do this kind of spiritual warfare. According to the law, the canon law, individuals or group of lay people, they can ask God for protection from demons. The priest can even do an exorcistic command to the demons to go away. Lay people, individually or in group, they can ask God to put those walls, to make them to flee. But for the moment, canon law do not allow lay people to do exorcistic prayers. I think in the future, with a better reflection of the theologians about the possibilities of the lay people, they can open ways for some individuals to exercise gifts, because in history of church, no doubt some lay people, they receive exorcistic gifts from God. Then I think in the future, not in the far future, but in the next 10 years, theological development in the reflection of the dignity of lay people will lead to some changes in the canon law. But for the moment there is no problem, because God knows the law. God wants we always obey. What is tied up on heaven, and God will give the fruits just to the prayer, the precatory prayer of lay people. I finish this little talk about spiritual warfare with a little episode that happened to me when I was a very much younger priest. I was doing an exorcism in my parish, and an 80-year-old boy was delivered from the two demons that were inside him. And when we were kneeling, giving thanks to the Lord, suddenly that boy entered into trance, and with a majestic voice he said, "Father, you have to protect your church." And he continued to explain that Satan hates the church and approach with fury to destroy it. Finally, the boy said, "I am Levi, the priest of the Old Testament. I understood it was true. I was praying for people every day in my parish from the whole nation, but I spent no time to pray for protection. I exorcised demons in the people, but I did not exorcise demons not to attack my parish. But I had a lot of work every day, and every day I say, tomorrow I have to do, but a week passed away and I did not pray for that intention. A week later, I was praying for another case. People in that group was completely different from the other group. Nobody knew what was said a week before. And when we were giving thanks for the freedom of a lady from a very, very strong demon, she was kneeling before the tabernacle, and it happened exactly the same. And she was another lady. And nobody in the group had contact with the people that was in the other exorcism a week before. And the lady, with a majestic voice, she said exactly the same words, word after word. Father, you have to protect your church. I was astonished. The words later were different, but the message was the same. Satan hates the church. He's approaching. You have to protect the church. And from that day, even I had a lot of work. Even I had my personal prayer before the tabernacle. Even I have my duties in the parish. I save a little time in the middle of the day to pray to God for the protection, to place walls around. Otherwise, the temptation of division, murmuration, many things will have happened in my flock. It's a way to attack the exorcist, not directly to him with temptations, but tempting all the people around. That is the reason so many exorcists, with a lot of work for years and years, they begin to have more and more problems with other priests, with parishioners, with the bishop, because those invisible beings, they go and they place ideas in the minds of those that are going to stop the ministry of that priest. All right, I finish here my talk about spiritual warfare, and I hope that every priest that is hearing me, if they wish, they dedicate a little of time to exercise this beautiful, powerful, exorcistic power that Jesus gave to all priests. Perhaps some will have no permission to pray for people, to exorcise people, but every priest can exorcise the powers, the rulers, the princes, the thrones, and the little demons that are in the air causing so much harm. We priests, we have the possibility to close the gates of hell. Not completely, of course, but a little. We can place walls. So many monks, with the prayers in their abbeys, in their monasteries, they are like placing a wall around the kingdom of heaven on earth. We do not see those walls, but if those monasteries disappear, so many demons will have free hand to attack the people, and more sins and more confusion will be in the church, and finally persecution. Nothing more. It has been a pleasure to speak with you in this way. We are in the 21st century. There is an ocean between us, but even that ocean, my word arrives to you. The same with your exorcistic powers. When you pray in your little church in a place, your voice will arrive powerful, clear to those thrones. And if you will see how much harm you do to the organization of evil forces, you will be surprised. You will pray every day a lot of. You will say, even if I have no parish, but I have time to do this task, what a blessed task for the church. How much is the power when you have faith, even if you see no fruit. But if you do this in a very strong way and every day, fruits you will not see, but you will see the angerness of the evil forces. They will try to stop you. You will see how they manifest themselves a little with fury, because they do not want you to discover how many treasures have been given by the Messiah to the followers of the apostles. God bless you and continue your lovely work as a priest. That is one of the most important things can be done on earth.